Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Duck Zone. We're going to jump right into it. There is a lot happening this week. We're at the midseason place of the NFL season. We've just got the NCAA college football playoff revealed predictor for the first time. So we got a lot to go over. So we're just going to jump right on into it. James, what's your headlines for this week coming out of the NFL?
Yeah, so the first thing I'm going to mention, obviously, we had a unfortunate incident, I guess you can say, in New Orleans. Their 7 game losing streak led to the firing of Dennis Allen. So that team took a hard turn after 2 weeks. We were talking about them as like, wow, this offense looks great. Kamara, Olave, Derek Carr looks great. Yeah, no, that's not happening. So they fired Dennis Allen. That was the big news. We obviously had the trade deadline that occurred this week. Number of moves, some linemen, some linebackers, some cornerbacks, bunch of receivers, but nothing too crazy. Nothing that tipped the scales, and obviously a lot of the big time receivers we talked about prior. But speaking of receivers, we did see, in my opinion, maybe the greatest catch. It's definitely up there with Odell Beckham, but Garrett Wilson, holy moly, that was insane. He literally did the Jordan pose, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was wild. So, Sean, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Answer this very simply, quickly. Is that the greatest catch that we've ever seen?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, it was, I don't know if it's the greatest, but it's definitely going to go in a lot of highlight reels. It definitely rivals the Odell catch from about 10 years ago. That was very impressive. I mean, this weekend had a lot of really, really cool moves. As great as that move was, and you might talk about it in a few minutes here, uh, it's that and the Barkley jumping over a player backwards, just ridiculous athleticism being shown in the NFL this week. Just craziness.
Yeah, I don't even know how you think of that. I mean, to be just, and not to mention the spin move prior to that backwards hurdle was also elite. And then to think, oh, I'm going backwards. Let me just jump backwards and hurdle a guy, and then he gets crunched. But I mean, it's Saquon, so he can take the hit.
But the athleticism out of those guys
Anyways, with that,
crazy.
oh yeah, the I don't know if I've ever seen two insanely crazy highlights like that in one. Like normally you get one. I mean, there's always like some good plays, but to get like one of the greatest catches you ever see, and then a highlight we've never. I mean, I've never ever seen a backwards hurdle. That's
Yeah,
why would
just
you do that? Why would you do that?
yeah, yeah.
So stemming off of that, I think the Jets. I'm not going to say they're back, but at least they're trending in the upwards direction. Devontae looked a lot better. Rodgers looked a lot better. So I guess the jury's out to see if the Jets can, start racking up some wins.
Yeah.
Are the Bills the best team kind of going under the radar? I mean, they're 7-2, so Sean, I mean, should we what are the Bills? I feel like they don't get talked about as much as a 7-2 team probably should.
They're pretty good. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs for sure, and they're probably going to lock up that division probably pretty easily, in my opinion. It's the same story with the Bills every single year. Is what's going to happen in the playoffs. I think they're a good. I think they're a good team. They've got good talent, and Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level. So, I mean, top five teams. It's just they got to show up in January, and win a game, or they got to win games in January.
Speaking of MVP performance, my next note: Lamar Jackson is still insane. Not that we didn't think he was, but fantasy owners and maybe even Ravens fans might have been a little worried seeing that he missed some practices during the week, but obviously that didn't stop him at all. Lamar's a freak. One team I don't think we've talked a lot about enough is the Chargers. They're good.
Yep.
Jim Harbaugh has that team playing super well. I know you and I have talked about them off camera. They're definitely more of a ground and pound team. J.K. Dobbins is showing that, the invested high draft pick in him wasn't a fluke. He just had a very, very unfortunate couple of years when it came to ACLs and just basically lower body injuries. But J.K. Dobbins is good. The Chargers are good. Herbert's good, and Herbert doesn't have to just throw 4,000 times a game. He can pick and choose, that kind of, I don't want to say a depleted wide receiving core, because it is all the guys, they're all healthy, but it's just not the Chargers receiving core we're used to, especially with Keenan Allen not there since he was a mainstay for like 10 plus years. But the Chargers are good.
Yep.
Burrow and the Bengals finally break out. They're one of those teams I feel like, Burrow, Chase. I know Higgins didn't play, but they have names, and they're still sort of like, I don't want to say coming off of that Super Bowl that they had made, but like, they're still big names, and you still think, oh, this team should be good.
Yep.
Commanders are off to their best start since 1996. So good for Washington. It's well deserved. Jaden Daniels is awesome. Atlanta's real. I think they're proving that the NFC South should probably be theirs for the taking. We saw an unfortunate injury to Dak, and the Cowboys, we've been obviously not high on them at all year. I don't know what they need to do. I know last week I had mentioned they need to make a trade, which they did. They traded for Mingo, who's a wide receiver from Carolina, who's, I guess, still has some upside, but it was kind of an odd trade. I don't know if you blow it up at this point. Maybe fire McCarthy. I don't know. But the Cowboys, or get rid of Jerry Jones. But that's a whole nother issue. But the Cowboys they're a mess. And now we get to see Cooper Rush at quarterback.
They're basically irrelevant.
Yeah, it's things in Arlington are not looking up. I'd put down Saquon's backward hurdle. We already discussed that. That was, yeah, there's no words. That was awesomely stupid, I'm going to say. I don't know if I would ever tell anyone, not that I'm a football coach, but I would never teach that to someone or tell someone to do that. But, if there is one person to do it, Saquon, go for it. The Lions proved that they don't need a dome to win. I know we've already talked about them as being one of the best teams, but they're proving they can do it anywhere. Outside, inside, doesn't matter. The Rams-Seahawks game was a ton of fun. That went into overtime. I had a lot of fun watching that game. I know you had talked about that the Rams and Seahawks games are always pretty tight, and you couldn't have been more on point with that. One of the last questions I'll pose to you before I kind of finish up with my notes, but what are the Cardinals? Is this team real? They've won 3 in a row now, and actually the last win against the Bears was pretty dominant, especially defensively and from a run game perspective. Kyler didn't have to do really anything in the game, and in his post-game interview, he was pretty funny. He gave a lot of credit to James Conner and basically told the reporter, like, hey, I'm fine with not having to do much. I just want to win. And to me, being a Cardinals fan, or even if you're just an NFL fan, that's a huge maturity. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I guess that it shows maturity out of Kyler that, he does care. He does care about winning. It's not all about Call of Duty. He does want to win. So what do we think of the Cardinals, Sean?
I think they're pretty good. Honestly, they're going to beat the bad teams, which is what they're showing. They're showing the teams like, the Chicagos, the Miamis, the Rams when they're hurt. They're beating the teams that they're supposed to be beating. They haven't really, Washington came in, they got clobbered by Washington. They got clobbered by Detroit. They beat San Francisco in San Francisco, but once again, San Francisco this first half of the season has been riddled with injuries. Um, so it's kind of like it's a weird one because I want to say they've got a really good shot of making the playoffs, but the NFC West is probably one of the most competitive divisions at this point. Niners now basically completely healthy with CMC coming back this week. The Rams all of a sudden look good, and we know Seattle, even when they're bad, they're not very competitive. Going to Seattle is a tough place to play, especially in December and January, and they're always going to throw out a competitive team. So it's a really hard division. I want to say the Cardinals are they're winning their division right now. I want to say because I'm a Cardinals fan, they're going to win the division, but it's really hard to say because the Niners are looking good, the Rams are looking good, the Seahawks are still going to be tough, and they've been really just beating up on what I would say the lower half of the NFL. Um, so it'll be interesting. My big worry is the remembrance of the Washington game going really bad and that Detroit game going really bad. Don't get me wrong, two teams that very well could win their division, but they got shellacked by both of them.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're already in week 10. And I know we have a little fun segment coming up after this. So, with my last note, it always seems to be the last one we talk about, but the Chiefs just keep chiefing. Mahomes is Gumby, by the way. That step, I guess you could say he took. He took a weird step. And not to speculate, obviously, the Twitter doctors out there are probably like, oh, torn ACL or Achilles is gone. And I mean, it didn't look good. Then all of a sudden, no, he's back out there, he's running around, he's fine. So the guy's a freak. The Chiefs actually are looking a lot better offensively now with DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, I'm just going to end it with that. The Chiefs are undefeated, and I don't know who's going to beat them.
Yeah, they may never lose at this point. They play tight games, though. That said, we are halfway through the NFL season, so we're going to do a little segment of predicting our division champions for each division really quick and who's going to make the playoffs because we're halfway through the season. So let's get a second shot at it. Let's be real. All of our preseason picks some of them are looking good, some of them not so much. James, who are your AFC division winners? What you think will be at the end of the year?
So I have the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Texans. To me, those are the four best teams, I think, in the AFC. So that's who I have as the division winners.
Big shocker. I have the exact same four. Do you have your wild card teams for the AFC?
I do. I have the Steelers and the Chargers, and surprisingly, maybe to some, the Bengals. I have them squeaking in there as the last team.
Okay, so we were actually really close. I have the Chargers, Steelers, and I actually have the Broncos getting it. I have three teams coming out of the West. Yeah. Let's flip on over to the NFC. Who do you got winning the division in those four divisions over there?
So I have the Lions. I'm putting the Lions as number one. I think they're going to finish as the best team in the NFC. Yeah. Then I have the Eagles, the Cardinals, just because I think they've already had a couple victories against NFC West. Well, I guess they beat the Niners. Anyways, doesn't matter. The Cardinals, and then the Falcons.
Okay, so we're very similar here. I've got the Lions, Eagles. I've got the 49ers, and then I've got the Falcons. I think the 49ers borderline run it out. I think CMC coming back is a big piece of that offense. And I think we're going to start seeing this team click post-bye week. It's going to be a scary team to face, in my opinion. Wild card teams?
I have the Commanders, Vikings, and 49ers.
So I got the Commanders, Vikings, and I've got the Packers.
Okay.
So Cardinals would be the first team out with the Rams. So I think they both end up with 10 victories, but The Packers, I think, win, beat out with the head-to-head because Packers beat the Cardinals earlier this season. All right, well, let's jump into, as you said, Week 10. This NFL season is flying by. We got to make our picks. So, first one of the week is a good divisional matchup. Thursday Night Football, Cincinnati heading to Baltimore. What do you got?
I like the Ravens. I think they ground and pound. And then if they need to throw the ball, Flowers is looking pretty damn good. Deontay Johnson has another week of practice, so he'll help out. No Higgins, I think, hinders the Bengals. So, I don't know. These Thursday games are weird, but I'm going to take the Ravens at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens at home as well. I'm just looking it up really quick. The last two times these two teams met, Burrow had a crazy game, 5 touchdowns. And if I remember right, they still lost. Yeah, they still lost that game. I don't see that happening again, so I'm going to take the Ravens in Baltimore. They're going to be popping. Let's go to Sunday's games. The first Sunday game, early morning, happening in Munich. The Giants taking on the Carolina Panthers. We really love showing off our talent in Germany, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Germany, that you have to endure this game. I'm taking the Panthers, and I don't have any reasons why. Both these teams are bad. They have the same record. They're both 2-7. I'm going with the Panthers because they're coming off a win, and the young kids seem motivated.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's really all I got.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. I'm actually taking the Giants. Just, I think it's going to be a showcase of young talent. It's basically a flip of the coin. I think Carolina got their win last week, so I'm just saying the Giants get their win this week. That's literally my only reason. But it's probably this game is probably more important for draft purposes for next year than anything else. Um, New England heading to Chicago. Two young teams. We're going to see quarterback number one, or draft pick number 1 versus draft pick number 3. Who do you got?
I like the Bears. Again, this game might be a slugfest. Drake May did impress me a lot, especially with his legs. But I think Caleb Williams bounces back here. He has been a little shaky the past couple weeks, and the one guy he is developing a ton of chemistry with is Roma Dunze. So I think that continues. But I know the Bears' defense didn't look great against the Cardinals, but I think they'll be able to keep the Patriots at bay. So I'll take Bengals. I'll take the Bears at home.
I'm going to take the Bears too. A lot of the same reasons, a lot of the same points you just made. I like Drake May. I just think the Bears have a little bit too much talent, and some of it's bound to explode. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, they're going to have a week here where they're going to pop off. Buffalo heading to Indianapolis. Indianapolis really struggled to move the ball last week on Sunday Night Football. Or was that Monday night? I don't even remember. It one of the primetime games. They just struggled to move the ball. But yeah, Buffalo heading to Indy.
I like the Bills. I really thought that Jonathan Taylor coming back would help the Colts offense, but yeah, I don't know. Something's not going right in Indianapolis. I know Pittman's been banged up. The whole quarterback controversy between Flacco starting 1 week, then we're going to go back to Richardson. Then Richardson gets hurt, so now Flacco's back in. Now we're benching Richardson, so now Flacco's the starter. It's just, you can't do that throughout an entire season. It's just too much of a mess. So I'm taking the Bills on the road.
I got the Bills as well. Not much to add there. Important division game. Denver heading to Kansas City. These two always play each other tight. Kansas City's playing every game tight this year, though.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I went against the Chiefs 1 week, and it bit me in the ass. So I'm going Chiefs at home because they're undefeated. And DeAndre Hopkins, that's also a reason why I'm taking the Chiefs at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs as well. It's just hard to bet against them when they haven't lost yet, simply said. Divisional game here. Atlanta heading to New Orleans. We've kind of already talked about new coach in New Orleans. They've gone through a ton of injuries throughout the season. Will they have enough to beat Atlanta?
I don't think so. I have the Falcons on the road. You have two scenarios with the Saints, and I know we discussed this in weeks past when Salah got fired with the Jets. You either get a team that's motivated for this new interim coach, or a team that's just kind of thrown in the towel. And with the Saints being 2-7, and the Olave hit, I don't their playmakers other than you have Kamara out there. That's about the only offensive piece that seems to be doing anything for the Saints. I don't know. It just doesn't. The vibe just doesn't seem good in New Orleans. So I think the Falcons win this.
Yeah, I got the Falcons too. Not much more needs to be said. New Orleans is quickly becoming the worst team in the NFL, which is super surprising off of those first 2 weeks. San Francisco, looking like they're going to have McCaffrey back, goes across the country to take on a very feisty Tampa Bay team.
I'm picking the Niners here. Like you mentioned, McCaffrey's back. I think that helps. They're coming off a bye, so another week of, or an added week, I should say, of players to just get a little more healthy. So that helps Debo. But the Bucks are just, they have a Band-Aid on. I mean, Baker's a good quarterback. He's proving it. But he's got Kate Otten and then just a bunch of receivers who aren't that great. So, yeah, I think the bye helps the Niners. So I like the Niners on the road.
Yeah, not much to add there. I'm going to take the Niners as well. Very interesting game here. Pittsburgh going to Washington. This is going to be a really good matchup. A good Pittsburgh defense going up against Daniels. Who's got the edge here?
I like the Commanders here. I think their defense is also much better, especially from last year. It's not a great defense, but it's much improved. And I think Jaden Daniels is the difference here. Yeah, Commanders at home.
I'm actually going to take Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh kind of gives Daniels some trouble. I think Pittsburgh offense picking up Mike Williams here earlier in the week. That's going to open up the offense just a little bit more. And now the two on the other side of Pickens. I think Pickens gets a little bit more room to work too. I'm going to take Pittsburgh in this one. I think they edge out the win. They give Daniels some trouble as there's now a little bit more film on Daniels the later in the season we go. This should be an easy one. Minnesota going to Jacksonville. Jacksonville kind of in the dumps right now.
Yeah, I'm taking the Vikings. I think the Vikings are a good team, and Jacksonville's a little bit of a mirage. I know they had a little bit of a, they tried to come back against the Eagles, but it was almost kind of like in garbage time. So there's nothing really I'm seeing from the Jags. So I'm taking the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings as well. That defense has been very good this year for Minnesota. Another pretty lopsided game on paper. The Titans heading to LA to take on the Chargers. Who do you got here?
Yeah, the Titans are also a mirage. What we saw last week against the Patriots, I don't think they're not. The Titans aren't good, and they were able to look like they were better because they were playing the Patriots. So I think the Chargers win this pretty easily at home, especially because they have a stellar defense.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chargers as well. I think the Titans are really going to struggle to move the ball in that one. What looked like a good game a few weeks ago, this is going to be the tale of probably what's going to happen in Dallas the rest of the year. Philadelphia going to Dallas. This could get ugly.
Yeah, I guess we're going to wait and see what's going on with CD Lamb. I know he's a little banged up. You have Cooper Rush in at quarterback, who wasn't terrible, taken over after the injured Dak, but it's still Cooper Rush and not Dak Prescott. So, give me Barkley and his backward hurdle against the Cowboys. I like the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm going to take Philly as well. Dallas, it's going to be tough when you got no Dak, potentially no CD Lamb, No Micah Parsons. I mean, this is their injuries are just mounting at this point. But yeah, Philly I think wins big in Dallas. The Jets heading to Arizona. Very very pivotal game for both teams in my opinion.
I'm taking the Cardinals because they're at home. Their defense seems to be playing out of their minds. I don't know what Jonathan Gannon, what drills or what he's telling them or what they're eating or I don't know, but they're playing really good defense. Jets have to travel across the country. Their offense isn't explosive either. So even if the Jets win, I don't think they'll it'll be like by 3 or 7. It won't be anything crazy, but I like the Cardinals. They seem to just kind of it's like they know how to win all of a sudden. So I'm going to take the Cardinals at home.
I'm going to take the Cardinals as well. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game, which is always fun to watch. Sunday Night Football is definitely game of the week. Detroit heading to Houston. Houston coming off the loss to the Jets. Lions have looked good all year. Who do you got? This is a great game.
If Texans were more healthy, I think we're waiting still to see what's going to happen with Nico Collins. And even if Nico does play, it's his first game back from a hamstring injury. And if he doesn't, then you got Tank Dell is basically the only receiver out there. And then you're putting a lot in the hands of Joe Mixon. I just think the Lions have way too many playmakers. And Jameson Williams is reinstated, so that should hopefully open up Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I like the Lions on the road.
I think this is a really, really good Houston defense, and I actually think this is the first time Jared Goff feels the pressure pretty much in like a month and a half. I actually think Houston's going to win this game in a super tight competitive game. It could go either way. I just like Houston in Houston. I think Detroit's got to lose one at some point. It's just the NFL. It's just how it works. It's just how the ball bounces. Houston lost last week in New York. I just feel like they're going to come in fired up. They get kind of like that. They're kind of off a mini bye because that Houston Jets game was on Thursday night, so they've gotten a little bit more extended time to prepare. So I'm going to take Houston just from that. And as you said, Nico Collins might play. That might help as well. But defense is no joke. Monday Night Football, Miami going to the LA Rams. Who do you got?
Yeah, another East Coast team traveling west. The Dolphins are healthy
Yeah.
now, but they also just haven't proven to me anything. The Rams are also getting healthy, and barring another Puka Nakua punch, he should be able to play through the whole game. So I like the Rams at home. The Dolphins just doesn't seem like their year. I don't know, that explosive offense and Mike McDaniel's drawing up crazy plays just doesn't seem to be hitting like it used to. So I like the Rams at home.
I'm going to take the Rams as well. Not too much to add on that one. Cleveland, Green Bay, the Vegas Raiders, and Seattle all on buys. That's a wrap on Week 11 for Week 10 of the NFL season. Now I'm going to toss it over to you. College football. I know you got some headlines, and we got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to let you start off with the headlines from last week.
Yeah, the first one, I didn't even write this down, but something I thought was kind of funny. That Ohio State-Penn State game, so it definitely lived up to the hype. I thought it was a very entertaining game. It started off with a bang, and then it kind of turned into a defensive battle, but it went the way that it always seems to go. Penn State just can't seem to beat Ohio State. So Ohio State got the big win. But one thing I thought was kind of funny is that Penn State fans boycotted Big Noon kickoff, and rightly so. I mean, a game of this magnitude, number 3 versus number 4.
2 and 3.
Was it 3-2 or 3-4?
2-3.
2 and 3. Okay. A game of this magnitude shouldn't be at noon Eastern. This is a night game. The students had every right to boycott Big Noon kickoff. I mean, so you have to start tailgating at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. I mean, I've been there. I've done it. It's fun. You get to wake up with mimosas. But, I went to Arizona. So it was like Arizona Oregon State, a nothing game, two unranked teams, whatever. You wake up, you party, you tailgate. Number two versus number three, this should be on prime time
Yep.
in prime. This should be on a prime time channel in prime time at night. Like, it
Yep.
should not be the first game you're waking up to watch, but
Yep.
whatever. At least the game was good.
Yep.
Ole Miss, I think they're coming. I think that they shouldn't be forgotten in the SEC. And Jackson Dart is a stud. I'm pretty sure he vaulted himself up into the Heisman race and is definitely in contention. He's had some pretty damn good games this season. And Lane Kiffin has that team playing really well. A team we're going to talk about a little later when it comes to games to watch, Army. They seem to be able to do it with whoever's at quarterback. I mean, I guess it seems like anyone can run that triple option offense that they run. They were without star Bryson Daly, so they're an interesting team. They're sitting there at 25. We'll talk about them a little later. Oregon dominated at the Big House. That was a game. I think I'm done with Michigan. That was the last time I was thinking, okay, Oregon, they don't go to Michigan, obviously, since they're now in the Big Ten. It's not like they play that often. It's the Big House. It's a tough place to play. I know Michigan's down this year, but they took it to them, and yeah, this is not Michigan's year, but it is Oregon's year.
Yep.
Georgia hung on, even with Carson Beck's 3 interceptions. He was not good, but Georgia was able to squeak it out. I'm just going to leave it at this. It's not even a question. I mean, it is a question, but it's like, what the hell's going on with the Big 12? We were talking a week ago about Iowa State and K-State and basically giving Colorado no shot because, okay, Colorado's having a good year. They've moved into the rankings. But they need quite the help if they want to have a chance at the Big 12. Well, I think that chance is happening because both Iowa State and Kansas State lost. So no team in the Big 12 just seems to want to take it. We definitely called it last week, saying that South Carolina at night is a tough place to play. South Carolina in general is always kind of a tough place to play, but I was a little wrong on what I thought of Texas A&M. I thought they were a lot better than what they just didn't show up to play at all. And so, I mean, credit to South Carolina, but they just absolutely got pulverized. Yeah, I don't know. Just like anything, like 1 week a team can look good, the next, wow, that was bad. And same can be said with Clemson. I mean, Louisville, potentially, I'm not going to say Clemson's shot is done, but a 2-loss ACC team might be hard. So it might be, Clemson needs a little bit of help to get, probably to play Miami in the ACC championship. And with that being said, the last game that we even talked about last week was SMU Pitt. I kind of posed a question: is Pitt someone we should pay attention to? No, I don't think they are. But SMU, I think we should pay attention to, and it's looking like SMU should win out. So I'm saying Clemson's shot is over. I'm going to put that out there because SMU wins out, and I think SMU and Miami is going to be the ACC championship. So
Correct.
Those are my notes. That's what I wrote down. Sean, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, no, it's a good runaround of last week right there. And one thing happened just a couple of days ago that we're going to kind of talk about now throughout the next few weeks is the field for the college football playoff was released of what if it was to start today, this is what it would look like. I mean, you've seen it. I've seen it. SMU, as you just said, is 13. Are there any surprises on that first top 25 in the playoff bracket, the way it looks for you? What was your reaction to it?
I wouldn't say anything's too crazy. It's not like you had something weird like Penn State still being in the top 4 or Yeah, I don't know. Something weird. Not that they should be, but nothing to me really stands out. It's a little confusing when you look at it, especially because like you said, this is the first time we've seen this 12-team playoff. When I was looking at it, they have the numbers for the slot that they're in, and then
Yeah.
they have the number of the ranking that they are. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. Like BYU, they're projecting to win the Big 12, so they're going to get a bye, and they're in the fourth slot, but they're not ranked four. They're ranked nine. So you just got to kind of
Yeah.
look at it a little bit longer, so you don't get so it makes a little more sense. But I wouldn't say. I'm looking at it right now. Nothing too crazy to me. Maybe I don't know. I would maybe swap Miami and Georgia just because I don't know. To me, it's like if you're undefeated, you're undefeated, and I know Georgia. Their one loss is to Alabama, but I don't know. Maybe I'm old school and punishing someone for not having lost a game. I don't know. Either way, they still have a bye, so nothing crazy.
Yeah, just a couple of things that stood out to me. I mean, 7 SEC teams in the top 16. That's just going to be a slaughter the rest of the way. Teams are just going to be eliminating each other week by week. I thought Army at 25 was surprising, undefeated and barely in the top 25. They just got a lot of ground to make up in 4 weeks. Boise State at 12, kind of going with that. If Boise State was at like 16, I'd be like, ooh, that's interesting. But like Boise State is strongly in this thing. At 12, they win out. They're definitely going to get in. Um, Outside of that, I mean, it looks pretty good. I mean, Oregon, Ohio State, 1-2. I mean, I know some people have been like Oregon, Georgia, it should be, but in the end, it's going to play itself out. Um, but these next few weeks, and we're going to jump right in basically into game one here, what we're going to talk about, these are starting to just be elimination games. And it's going to make for a very, very exciting November throughout college football because we're going to have 3, 4 elimination games every single week, basically the rest of the way. With that said, they should also have been doing this forever. Like, this is very exciting. Brackets are good. We'll jump into we got 6 games to highlight for this week, and we're starting off with a doozy. Number 3, Georgia, heading to Ole Miss, who is 16 in that college football playoff ranking.
Yeah, I'm taking Ole Miss at home. I think their offense is elite, and Georgia just seems a little volatile week to week. You don't really know what team is showing. Their defense plays well, but then Carson Beck doesn't look good. Then maybe their offense is looking a little better, but then their defense isn't great. So, yeah, I'm taking the upset at home. I think Jackson Dart is for real, and I think he's just going to keep chucking it and keep rising in the Heisman rankings.
This is a great game. I mean, I'm going to go Georgia. I still have the thoughts of what happened in in Austin. Uh, I think Georgia wins this and has a performance very similar to what they put on against Texas. They show up in big games. Even the game they played against Alabama, they had a stinker in the first half, but they turned it on and played great in that second half. I just think Georgia will be ready, and I have a hard time believing that they lose this one. Granted, Beck has not looked good. If he just becomes, he just has to stop turning the ball over, and that team is going to be really, really tough to stop. Next game, Big Ten game, Michigan heading to number 8 Indiana. I know you just picked up a stat pre-show. It's pretty shocking about Indiana Michigan matchup.
Yeah, Michigan's won the last, was it 42 of 44 matchups. It's pretty one-sided, but 2024 is a different year. Indiana looks like a pretty damn good team. They're literally blowing out teams every single week. I know they haven't really played anyone yet, and you could argue that Michigan's going to be their first, tough tough team to play. I don't think Michigan's really that good, but it still is from name recognition. It still is the Wolverines. They're coming off the national championship. Obviously, new coach, new quarterback, and I'm not going to say things have gone to shit, but it's not good what's going on in Ann Arbor currently. So, with all that being said, Indiana continues rolling, and I don't think we get like an Oregon-like performance out of Indiana, like blowing out Michigan in the Big House. But I think Indiana wins by I'm gonna say 10.
Okay. I think Indiana wins as well. The only way they lose this game is if they're looking ahead to next week's game against Ohio State. Um, just keep your eye on this game, and they should be okay. Indiana winning by probably about the score you said. I could see 10 happening. Uh, Another surprising team, number 25 Army, going to North Texas. This game is surprisingly only a 5-game spread. That's why we threw it in here. Army, as we just kind of said, has to win out to get in the playoff. They also have a tough game next week against Notre Dame. Will they win this one, or will they be looking ahead as well?
Yeah, you got to be careful with games like this because exactly what you said. Sometimes these teams look ahead to, you know, next week, and Army very much should be concerned for Notre Dame, but maybe get the win first at North Texas, which I think they do. I'd be curious if the spread changes the closer we get to the game. I'm not sure. I haven't looked up what's going on with Bryson Daly. But I think if he comes back, I mean, he's having a ridiculous year as a quarterback. He's throwing touchdowns. He's running touchdowns. The Army offense looks pretty good. I think Army, I don't want to say dominates North Texas, but if Bryson Daly's back and healthy, I think Army easily wins this game. And, then they can start looking ahead for Notre Dame next week.
I'm going to take Army as well for a lot of the same reasons. A team that I thought was pretty much dead in the water, but we kind of talked about it. They've won their games. The Big 12 is kind of falling apart. Number 20, Colorado, heading to Texas Tech. Colorado's got a shot into the Big 12 championship. I can comfortably say BYU is sitting in a great spot, but that second seat in that championship game is very much available.
Yeah, like I mentioned, K-State and Iowa State just kind of opened the door. I think Colorado keeps it rolling. It's hard to bet against Shadur and Travis Hunter right now, and Travis Hunter's having an insane season, as seen by the bookies and the bettors out there. He's, I believe, still number one in the Heisman when it comes to odds. So Texas Tech's a tough place to play, and they've knocked off a couple teams this year. They played spoiler. I don't think they play spoiler this week, so I think Colorado hangs on.
I'm going to say Colorado hangs on as well. Another big SEC matchup here. This is an elimination game, more than likely. Number 11 Alabama going into number 15 LSU.
Yeah, I'm taking Alabama here basically just because they're Alabama. I think they've had their scares already earlier this year. Milrose had his games where he doesn't look good. He can't keep affording to have those games, and I think we see a really good game. I think this is going to be a really, really fun game. But I think Alabama, squeezes it out, midway or even late in the fourth quarter. So I like Alabama on the road.
I don't have much to add. I share a lot of the same feelings. It's just tough seeing. It's hard to believe Alabama will lose this game with their season on the line. I see a very, very locked-in Crimson Tide team that takes an early lead and kind of takes the crowd out of it very, very quickly. Last game we're going to be talking about, it's the Battle of Utah, the Warman Bowl, if you want to call it that. BYU taking on Utah. BYU ranked number 9 and the front runner for that Big 12 championship at this point.
I'm taking BYU. I still think this will be a tough game. Utah is normally a tough place to play, especially at night. But yeah, Utah just they don't have it this year. Um,
Yeah.
Cam Rising seems to just he just can't stay healthy, and Utah I think they're on like a 4 game losing streak. So I don't think BYU blows them out per se, but I think this Mormon Bowl goes the Cougars' way. So I'm taking BYU.
I'm taking BYU too, and if you have not watched BYU play this year, this team is good, undefeated, and this is a good team. They're definitely worth a watch, and they could make some noise in the playoff, and they probably could run with the big boys, which is pretty surprising to say. It's cool how this playoff is kind of shaped out on this first year, where you have these, big powerhouse teams. The Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Texas in there, but you've got a lot of these small schools that are not football powerhouses in the first year. Well, recently I would say BYU recently hasn't been a powerhouse. Indiana has never been a powerhouse. Boise State, getting their shot. It's really cool that on the first year of the playoff, we're getting teams a good mixture of both. It's not just like crazy powerhouses and a good little sprinkle in there mixing it up. That said, any last things to say before we wrap up here, James?
No, I think we handled quite a bit. We got through it nice and easy. So another week in the books.
All right. Well, that's our show. I got nothing else to add. Watch football, guys. I'll see y'all later.